This video is not for whales and dolphins. It's for you, because you are just like me. Average Like Gamer here, and like me, you're probably wanting to get into Evelyn. Nah, you heard what I said. So if you weren't aware, Evelyn is available to try out in-game right now through the story of 1.5 and the TV schedule. So we're going to break down her kit, demo how she works, how to get the best out of her without having to read walls of text, and then we'll discuss where she's going to be most useful and her best teammates. Timestamps below if you're more interested in one part than another. First things first then, let's talk about her kit. So let's talk about her stack mechanic first, and then we'll develop that into discussing her basic and special attacks. I'm not going to use Hoyo's terms because they're stupid. We'll just call them stacks. Now, the most key and important part of Evelyn's kit is that she can enable the usage of chain attacks through building up stacks in the little box under her name. This means that she can use these extra chain attacks to do additional damage as part of a combo without needing to stun the enemy to trigger them. The multiplier associated with her chain attack damage is also really high. There's her numbers at level 9, and just for a comparison point, here's Miyabi at level 12. We can't see any more than level 9 right now, as that's all that's confirmed in game, but it's pretty safe to say that her chain attack multiplier is going to be the best in the game, and as discussed, she can release them herself. So let's talk about how to do chain attacks. So when you get 3 stacks, you hold down the basic attack button and you can do the chain attack, which is super cool. How do you get those stacks? Well, next to the box that shows the stacks, we can see a bar that fills from doing your normal attacks. And when this bar goes over 50%, you can hold basic attack to perform an attack that grants a stack. So on a basic level, you build up 3 stacks and then unleash the extra chain attack. It's pretty simple, but when we start adding in EX Special and Alt, we'll see that there's actually quite a bit of depth to Evelyn's kit. Now, let's talk about the Alt first, because it's directly useful for stack buildup. So Alt does big damage and the AoE is actually pretty good. I mean, yeah, it's not quite Miyabi level in terms of multipliers, but it was never going to be. It is pretty close to Juyuan level though, especially considering that I'm comparing my level 12 Juyuan skill to a level 9 Evelyn skill. And you get 1 stack towards Evelyn's chain attack from doing the ult. Now, once you've ulted once, you always have that 1 extra stack towards the chain, so in effect, you only need 2 additional stacks to trigger the chain, and that remains for the rest of the encounter. Oh, and she also removes her jacket, which some of you might enjoy. So you remember how earlier I mentioned that Evelyn only needs 50% of her charge for you to hold attack and then gain a stack. So now after the ult, if you only need 2 stacks to do the chain, then if you have a full bar, then you can just hold down basic to gain 2 stacks and then chain attack. So if you go into a stun window with an enemy with 3 stacks ready to go and also a full bar, you can see that unloading a bunch of chain attacks quickly during a stun window is certainly something that Evelyn can do. And we haven't even talked about EX Special yet. And before that, we need to explain her Garrote. So the Garrote will tie an enemy and grant Evelyn a 25% crit rate buff at max level if you have F'd her. I mean, if you have leveled her core skill to F. And this buff hangs around for 10 seconds once the Garrote disappears too. Anyway, what is the Garrote and how do we activate it? It's the string that attaches to the enemy, and you can activate it by doing the 5th hit of her basic attack or by doing an EX special attack. But seeing as Evelyn attacks so fast, it feels better to turn the Garrote on after 5 basic attacks, and then you can use Evelyn's EX special to do big damage once the enemy is garroted. Garroted? I don't know. But yeah, the damage diff between hitting this with or without the EX special is pretty big, so most of the time I would save the EX special for once the Garrote is active and then unleash it. Following the EX special, Evelyn can also start her combo from the 3rd hit of her basic attack chain. Now when Evelyn leaves the field after garroting the enemy, she will use the non-EX special follow-up and remove the Garrote. But then pretty much all of her re-entry moves are coming back onto the field, so quick assist or chain attack re-trigger the Garrote upon re-entering the field. So unless you're bringing her back on through just a standard switch, you likely won't want to use the special to trigger the Garrote just for buff, because it will probably already be there, especially if you're playing with Astra, but we'll talk more about teams in a bit. Before then, this is your reminder that you probably aren't subscribed. Liking and subscribing is the best way to support creators like me on YouTube. If you want to see me working out what I'm going to say live and ask me questions, then drop me a follow on Twitch. We do that sometimes. And I'm trying to up the streams to twice per week, and you'll be able to see my schedule on there. If you want to ask for advice with your Zenless Zone Zero agents or just vibe and chat about the game, then join the Discord. We'd love to have you. Links for all that in the description down below. Now let's finish up on the kit, as we've kind of talked about how to play Evelyn, but she has a bunch of stuff built in to help her out. So we already mentioned her chain attack multiplier being pretty good, as long as she's run with a stun or support character, so basically any coherent team. She will also benefit from her chain and ultimate being buffed by 30%. And if her crit rate is over 80%, then she also gets a multiplier of 125% on her chain and ultimate, which is to say, yeah, that chain attack will do big PP damage. And considering how easy it is to build up the stacks, it wouldn't be too crazy to suggest that Evelyn can be an absolute monster in the stun window, because as discussed earlier, you can enter a stun window with basically 2 chain attacks ready to go. Post 1 ultimate, you'll trigger an additional 1 as well when you enter stun, and then Astro would also enable 2 more, and that's 5 during the stun window without considering additional build-up and the fact that you could have another ult ready. And I'm talking about the stun window here, but as much as Evelyn gets boosted by this, unlike a character like Ju Yuan, she doesn't only trigger certain key parts of her kit when in the stun window, so she can still deal pretty solid damage when the enemy isn't stunned. Which kind of brings us to the conversation around teams. Yes, Astra is going to be the best support. We've already touched on why twice, but big attack buff, crit damage buff, quick assist switch-ins, which enable immediate trigger of the Garrote, and the additional chain attacks following her ult make Astra incredible with Evelyn. But if you wanted to try a different low-cost support, Lucy would be a solid option, especially at higher Mindscape levels, her M4 boosting crit damage and M6 being a big boost to Lucy's personal damage. Plus, they wouldn't need a connecting agent, as Lucy is happy just with another fire agent, which again would boost Lucy's personal damage. Nicole too would also be great with her 40% defense reduction, and again at higher Mindscape, her M6 crit rate buff would also be useful for Evelyn. You don't have to worry too much about missing out on Nicole's core passive, as the ether damage buff isn't important for Evelyn. Nicole's grouping though is also something to mention too, as Evelyn's ultimate and chain attacks have decent AoE as mentioned earlier, but with Nicole's suck, you can make the most out of Evelyn's wider range. The more premium support units like Caesar will also work well. I just think Nicole and Lucy are solid low-cost options. Now, we move over to the other team slot, and you'll likely want to run a stunner here so that you can back-to-back chain attacks during the stun window. Lighter looks like he's shaping up to work best due to his fire buffs, followed by Qingyi due to her big buff to the stun window, but I actually don't think that Khalida will be that far behind. So Khalida will enable a potential 70% buff to chain attacks during the stun window, meaning that banking those extra stacks for Evelyn will be really important to unleash it all in the stun window. I guess this would just be a happy coincidence if you happen to have Khalida, or maybe you're just about to choose your S rank from the selector at 300 pulls. But do we think that Khalida will be up to lighter/Qingyi levels? Not really, but I think that she'll be good enough and definitely way better than our A-rank stunner of Ambi. But if you only have original Ambi, then you gotta do what you gotta do. Ambi will probably be okay for now, but you should consider an upcoming replacement soon. I'll also mention that Qingyi is running with Evelyn and will be good for her, but we should wait until news on Trigger before committing to Qingyi. We will get the 1.6 livestream during the Evelyn and Qingyi banners, and if you're really in for Evelyn, then yep, go for her. But if you're also thinking about Qingyi or Evelyn, it might be best to wait until we get the news on Trigger to see if she'll be any good with Evelyn before you commit to Qingyi. There's certainly going to be other teams that could run Evelyn as well, potentially with Fire Anomaly like Bernice to keep the flames on and enable Evelyn to use the Inferno metal set more effectively instead of her suggested 4-piece of Woodpecker, but we'll explore those when we can actually try them out. For now, it seems like she was designed with a traditional attack, stun, and support setup, hence her additional ability. Lastly then, my actual thoughts on Evelyn is that she's really fun to play. She feels more involved to play than some other characters, but she's not incredibly complicated to play either. Now, I'm sure there's definitely tech that will be discovered once players get their hands on her that runs deeper than what I've shown here, but I think it's interesting and engaging to manage her kit, and ultimately it's fun. I should also mention that Evelyn has quite a lot of iframes in her attack string, so you barely get interrupted while playing her, making her feel somewhat similar to Jane, which is not a bad comparison. I just wish Evelyn wasn't wearing her jacket in the overworld. I think that in terms of attack character power, we might finally have someone beat out Ju Yuan with Evelyn, but considering the power of Anomaly and the fact that we have Ambi 2 Lost in New York coming in 1.6, I think a lot of players really won't need Evelyn. And I think if you're on the fence between Evelyn and Ambi 2, Ambi harder, then maybe just wait for the 1.6 livestream before pulling Evelyn so you have a better idea as to who out of the two you will prefer. Of course, if Evelyn is your waifu, then go for it. You don't need me to tell you that. Anyway, thanks for watching. Another video of mine should have popped up now. If you're interested, I'm off now to prep and farm for Evelyn. No. 2 Ambi 2 Furious. No, Evelyn. Ah, why is it so hard? As always, don't forget to like and subscribe for better than average luck on your pulls. Pull responsibly, stay weird. Bye, 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 bye.